Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiT Photo with Catherine Hall and Sarah Lane, episode number 53, April 17th, 2012, Joel Grimes.
This episode of TWiT Photo is brought to you by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/TWiTPhoto. Hey everyone, welcome to TWiT Photo. This is the photography show on the TWiT network. Leo Laporte is off at NAB this week, so I am filling in for him. Thank you so much to Catherine Hall for allowing me to join you on TWiT Photo, because I'm the noob and you're the expert, so hopefully I'll learn a thing or two.
Yeah, I will too. There you
Good.
go.
It's a good partnership then.
We have an action-packed show today. We're going to do some Photoshop demos.
Cool.
We're also going to Joel's going to explain his compositing techniques, and we'll do some interviewing, and we're going to learn how Joel does streaking.
Cool. So our guest is Joel Grimes, who we're going to invite into the conversation in just a minute.
But first, we have a really big announcement. I'm very excited. Google and Kelby have collaborated on creating the first G+ conference for photographers. It's all about Google and all about photography, and it's going to be in San Francisco on May 22nd and 23rd, and we're going to kick it off with photo walks on the 21st.
How great!
Yeah, so I'm so pumped. And if you look at there's 16 instructors, a ton of them are actually from Google. So it's going to be a really exciting convention for photographers, pros, enthusiasts, anyone that's interested in photography itself or sharing their work in social media.
Great.
So, you can check it out on, I can't read that. Can you read that? G+, well, anyway. Yeah.
Well, you'll have a link to it on your Google Plus page,
exactly.
and then we'll add a link on this episode of TWiT Photo.
Exactly. So just all you have to do is Google G+ conference San Francisco, and I'm sure and Kelby, and it will pop up. Anyhow, so that's exciting. And then also we have our tip of the week, which if we go to my website, you can check that out, catherinehall.net/blog. And I thought it would be appropriate to talk about lighting, since we have a lighting master with us here today. And I want to start off by saying I used to be afraid of using artificial light.
And why is that?
It's intimidating. And I think, instead of facing my fear for a long time, I hid under the mantra of I'm a natural light shooter. And I hear that a lot. And I think more often than not, it's people just not wanting to take the plunge and not wanting to take risks and try something new and put themselves out there. Because I was one of those people. And so my work was really held back by my lighting. Mm-hmm. Drastically. And I kind of started getting bored. And I started exploring using lighting and realized that that's what photography is about. I mean, so
it's kind of like this seems familiar to me, because working in video for so many years, it's like audio used to not be my forte.
Yeah.
And it's like without the right audio, you've got nothing.
Exactly.
So you just have to embrace it and figure out what your tools are and learn them.
Exactly. And then once you started embracing it and learning it, did you notice that inspired you? And
oh, yeah, because now you see the videos with bad audio and you're like, they're only half trying.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
Or they're limited.
So if you go to my website, it explains the tip of the week. But main thing is get out there, play, have fun. Use artificial light, use modifiers. If you're intimidated by it, start off simple and just get a reflector. I use California Sun Bounce. I love their reflectors. But that would be my takeaway. So without further ado, let's introduce our great guest. Thanks so much for coming all the way up here from LA.
Well, thank you.
With your beautiful wife, who's in our audience. And how's it been? How's the trip?
Well, we started about 4 days ago and just went up the coast and been shooting backgrounds and lots of fun.
So you're shooting backgrounds. Why?
Well, because I'm trying to build a library of images that I can, when I do my composites, I have backgrounds to put people in. So I shoot the subjects in a studio on a white sweep, and then I knock them out, cut them out, and then drop them into a background.
So when you're looking for these backgrounds, do you have an idea of what you want to shoot, or are you organically going through it? And how do you pick what to shoot, and what's your approach?
Well, I'm not as smart as I wish I was, because I can't really think ahead too far. But because people always ask me, what do I shoot first, the subject or the backgrounds? And it doesn't matter to me either way. I can sometimes shoot the subject and go, I need this background, and go try to find it. Or sometimes I get a background and think, I want this subject to go in it, so I'll get the subject and, set up a shoot.
Which way is easier?
I don't really know. I mean, I don't think
either or,
yeah.
Well, because you have the flexibility of just playing around with it after the fact. Once you have a couple of images and see, hey, do these look good together? Or do they look so kind of strange that it's a cool contrast and it gives a picture of pop? We should mention, we're looking at some of Joel's photos, which you can see at joelgrimes.com. And this is a great example of a photo where if I didn't know the technique that you just described to me, I would say, well, he's obviously got some sort of a spotlight behind the guy and probably had to tone it down quite a bit in Photoshop afterwards. I would have no idea that this is 2 layers.
Yeah. Well, see, I was strobing people in the field for 25 years.
Strobing people?
Well, using light, artificial light, battery packs in the field.
Yeah.
And so for a long time I was thinking in two dimensions, or 2 levels, the subject and the background, because you're strobing the subject and letting your shutter speed determine the value of the background. And so when the composite thing the availability came around, Photoshop, it was like, wait a minute, I've already been doing this for 25 years. I just didn't physically cut them out and drop them in a background. But I was always thinking in those 2 levels. So it's, I just kind of walked right into it. And I think it fits me really, with my vision as a photographer, of doing the lighting. I have complete control over that lighting in the studio, and then I can knock them out, and then I have complete control over the compositions, the HDR. I shoot everything in HDR, so I get this tonal range that's just amazing, and you couldn't do that in one capture. You could knock the background down, but you still lose a lot of detail in the shadows.
A lot of people think of sports photography and they think it's action, it's, you got to have, really fast shutter and you're down on the line at the football field, that sort of stuff. Were you ever doing that type of sports photography, or have you always done portraits?
Always. Well, I started out in landscapes, but I'm a portrait shooter. And when I was in college, I covered some events, but that wasn't really my thing. And it's fun, I think, being down there with the action, but to me, you don't have any control, really. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm a control freak, I don't know, but I love to be able to say, well, and I say
Amy
this.
says you're a control freak.
No.
His wife is nodding in the background.
She's nodding, Rita, and he says, no.
No, as an artist.
I believe Amy.
As an artist, I want to have the ability to say exactly where that light falls on someone's face. That's the control I mean.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting, because you said earlier, you tried some things and it didn't work. How did you know? Was it a click moment? Like, how did you know you found the right type of photography to pursue?
I had my very last semester in college, I had to take one more upper division photography class to get my degree, and about the last thing left was a portrait class. And it wasn't with strobe lighting. This was the University of Arizona, so it was all in the fine art, realm. And I was a little nervous about taking pictures of people, but I ended up photographing this little kid. I followed him around. It's a family I knew, but I followed this little kid, kind of a day in his life. And some of the pictures just turned out beautiful. I used natural light at the time. I didn't have any strobe experience. And then when I had my portfolio, I'd show my landscapes, and I'd show, these, what I thought were my best images. And then I threw a couple little portraits in there. People get to those, and they go, those are amazing. And I thought, well, maybe there's something there. And then as I got into the commercial advertising, or I had to make a living, I just kind of fell into it. And it's a long story, but eventually that's all I've done is shooting people.
Well, you say you've been doing stuff for 25 years, and you've come to the point where you know the tools that are available to you, and you can choose to shoot the way that you want. If you want to shoot backgrounds and then add them to a subject, that's fine. How different, what were the first days of your commercial career like? You're out of college. What did you start doing first?
Well, I assisted a celebrity shooter in L.A. for a couple months, Bill Robbins. And then a friend of a friend and I, we went off to Denver and set up a shop, a photo studio. And I started actually shooting architecture because I didn't know what else to do at the time. But then I got this project, or I went in to show my portfolio, and the art director said, I love your interiors. Can you put a mom, dad, and 2 kids on a couch in this home? And I was like, yeah. And that started my people career. And I was nervous because I didn't know what to do at first. And lighting, I didn't have really a clue because I understood the Rembrandt cross-light triangle kind of look because I studied that from the painters. But outside of that, I really didn't know the difference between what an umbrella would do. And I don't even think we had official softboxes. Well, I guess we did in the 80s. We had official softbox that you could put as a modifier. But it was a mystery, total mystery. And then by just practicing and taking a modifier and say, what does this thing do? And shooting it every different way I could think of. And eventually I learned how to use the Rembrandt triangle to my vision. And I did that for 20-something years. And then one day I said, I'm tired of this. And I thought, what can I do? What else could I do? And I had this old beauty dish that I had bought. I didn't know what to do with it. And it was, not too expensive. So I thought I'd just buy it. And then I shot it. And I was like, I don't know. This doesn't make any sense to me. So I just put on a hook, and I hung for 2 years. And then I thought, what if I put 2 edge lights and an overhead light? Well, I only had 2 softboxes, so I had to put another modifier somewhere. So I grabbed the beauty dish, put it overhead, and that began this 3-light, edgy look that I've been doing for about 5 years. And I just kind of, having mastered, I guess I'd say mastered, but really fine-tuned the Rembrandt look, I was able to move right into, I would say, when I say master, but really fine-tune that 3-light approach.
So can you just, for viewers that might not know, explain the 3-light approach?
Well, I have the edge, the edge light falls right on the rim here, and it comes up. And what I'm looking for, I don't care where it lands on the shoulder or the arms. What I'm looking for is it has to creep in right about there.
Kiss the cheek, but not hit the nose.
Yes. Okay.
And why not hit the nose? Because
well, it doesn't. If it hits the nose a little bit, it's not bad. But what you want to do is you want to leave this section right here as the overhead light determines that value. Okay. So you have a transition from this edge light to a softer, I'd say softer, but a gradual, transition of value. And what that does is we are basically illusionists, and we are creating 3-dimensional looking imagery on a 2-dimensional, viewing surface. And so what I'm trying to do is create depth, and that value change creates depth, and that's why I do it.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of photographers actually don't utilize that, but in film, it's all the time. I mean, they always have a backlight signing that. Why do you think it's adopted more in film and not in photography? Still photographers end up thinking like still photographers. And that's the problem that we have. When I do a lecture, a lot of times, what I do in a workshop is I sit down and I redefine what a photographer is, or what we think photography is. And so we are really good at putting ourselves in a little box. And if you think about it, okay, a photojournalist, right? When I was in school, I was in the fine arts, okay? And they had a photojournalism department. And the photojournalists, what kind of camera do they have around their neck? Leica?
Leica, rangefinder. Because that was the photojournalist, the range, the decisive moment, and that quiet camera, and so, but I was shooting landscape. So what kind of camera did I use?
4x5.
Exactly, a view camera. And that's how we've been as photographers. We end up building this little box that we're in, and what happens is if you try to, have a definition that's slightly out of that box, whoa, people get upset because we're very set on our little ways. And the digital revolution has really sort of tore down a lot of boundaries as a good thing. Now, at first, a lot of photographers, and I was part of that group in a way, was like, here's my definition. You can't change this on me. And so as I began to embrace the digital, and partly it was because I realized, wait a minute, I have more tools to create. okay? And wait a minute, this is a creative process. So if I'm an artist, that's my end result, right? I want to take and do something and hang it on a wall or whatever and say, that's me. That's what I did that. That's why I'm in it.
You know, you mentioned that, and in your bio on your website, you also mentioned, listen, I do a lot of commercial photography. That's been my career, but I'm a very creative person. And you know, I'm reading that thinking, well, of course, you know, just because you're doing commercial photography, it's almost like you almost need to be more creative because you got to impress all these other people. But is there some sort of proving that you have to do as a commercial photographer to remind people that you actually still are making works of art?
I think art buyers, art directors, creative directors, whoever's buying photography, even if you're a wedding photographer and you have to win over a bride and her mother or whatever, whoever you're winning over, if you sell yourself as, or make the presentation that you are an artist and you're one of a kind, you can create something that, say, no one else can create, then you have a better chance of winning that person over than if you say, oh, by the way, I know f-stops, shutter speeds, I can put a flash on, and I'm a real good technical person. Okay, so the best you can get paid as a technician is a technician's wage. But an artist has no ceiling on what they get paid because people want one of a kind. And so that's why, I don't care, across the board, anything, even a car. If there's a one-of-a-kind car, $2 million, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, people pay for it. One of a kind. It may be ugly, but it's one of a kind. And so when I'm pitching art directors, art buyers, I try to make sure that they know that they're looking at an artist and someone who has a passion to create. It's important.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have your style is, I could see a photo and know it's Joel Grimes from a mile away. And I think a big part of that might be due to the fact that you're actually colorblind.
Yes.
Can you please explain how that might be an asset for you?
Well, I used to not share that with my clients because I didn't want them to know. They were hiring a colorblind
And now
photographer.
it's on television.
Now
over.
it's everywhere, yeah. But the thing is the fact that we are unique, and I say this a lot. You're unique. You're one of a kind. There's no one on the planet just like you. And the reason is we have all these things that make us up: our height, our backgrounds, you know, what kind of music we like, and so that comes into play when you go to create, because you're drawn to something. You're drawn to go down a certain path, and so you may like surfers, and you say, I'm going to go out there and battle the waves and whatever, and try to capture this moment of with the surfer, because that's what you have a passion for. Someone else, you get out in that water, and you say, this is stupid. I'm cold. I don't want to do this. So we're all drawn to something. My colorblindness allows me to go down a path, or I'm drawn down a path that's unique to me. And so where years ago I thought, well, I'm colorblind, I got to just kind of make do with that. And there were some challenges being colorblind, but really it allows me to go down a path that is unique to me. And so the look that I have with my imagery is really I'm drawn to desaturation. I don't like too much color because I'm nervous about when I do the Photoshop, retouching. Because I do all my own retouching, by the way.
This is what I was going to ask you is, some of these photos, someone might even mistake for black and white because they are very desaturated. But then you get, a burst of red lipstick, or a line of a bathing suit or something like that. How do you do that? Do you have to have a second party come over and say, yeah, that looks pretty normal?
No, here's the beauty of it. Because I've created a certain look that's Joel Grimes, I can get away with pretty much anything I want to do. And so if I make a mistake, let's say I do something and I go, well, I really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to pull the red lipstick. I can't really see the red that much, but I'm just going to do add a little bit more red to it. And then you come along and you go, that's brilliant. And I think, oh, yeah, that was brilliant. I don't really know sometimes what I'm doing. I just let it happen, and my intuition tells me that as an artist, I'm going, I like it. And then I leave it alone.
So is that how you don't, because that's my first question, is how do you not doubt yourself? How are you not like screaming, Amy, come look at this, does this red lipstick not look good?
Well, there's always it's nice to have someone verify what you're doing, but there's danger in that, because one person could derail you from actually going down the path that you should be going down. So you have to be careful who's sort of standing on your shoulder. But really, I think that each one of us has an intuition that tells us we're right on. The problem is we're afraid to actually put that out into the real world because someone's going to take a whack at it. And there's people that take a whack at my stuff and say, I don't like it, it's too desaturated or it's too whatever. And I have to recognize that not everyone's going to love everything I do. And so I just accept that. But there's enough people, hopefully, that say, I like what you do, and you keep doing it.
Do you have sports figures? I know you shoot many kinds of portraits, not just sports figures, but there are many, at least that are featured on your site, where I'm like, wow, I really like that football player. Pretty cool. What a neat portrait. Do you have people that come to you and say, I like what you did for him or her. I want that for me. Can you do that for me?
Sure.
And you do.
It's nice because well, how did I start out doing sports figures? I had to start with average Joe.
Mm-hmm. Did you know you wanted to do that, or did that just naturally evolve?
It kind of did. I've always loved sports. I don't watch sports on TV, and so a lot of the sports people have...
You love the idea of sports.
Well, they make great subjects. Because what I like is, here's what I love, making people larger than life.
And sports figures are great for that. They get the muscles, they're chiseled, they're powerful.
They're the Superman type, that you can... They make great subjects. And so... I just kind of fell into that. I said, okay, these will make great subjects. I think I had the lighting and the techniques to go that route. But then I shot everyone I could that was sports-related, sports fitness, and I built the portfolio up to where the clients start calling.
So this person is not in a desert anywhere.
No, that's correct.
This is not Black Rock out in Nevada, much as it might seem that way. Well, you were not on location.
Oh, I shot that. Well, yeah, I shot the background. But then I shot him. Actually, believe it or not, this background was shot specifically for this picture because I brought him in the studio and I said, I want to make him so dark that he's hardly any detail in his face or in his body, and then drop him into a cracked dry lake bed that was blown out. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute with I got one of my pictures that I'm going to kind of show. But this is a good example of 10 years ago, well, say 15 years ago, this image probably wouldn't have been accepted because it really defies all the standards of what a correct exposure should be. And I don't want to give my other talk away on that other image, but what we can accept that now because we've broken down all those barriers. The digital has broken those barriers down.
Well, and that's what you're talking about not having too many rules. You do your thing, that's a beautiful photo. But it might break whatever rules you might have learned in, I don't know, in fine art classes that say that's too...
That's dead center.
You don't dead center. You don't put something in dead center. Always the rule of thirds composition. That was what I did for years. And I even had a show once where I had a couple, just for some reason, I had a couple images that were dead centered, the subject was, and some looked like he was a distinguished guy. Who knows? He was probably the head of some art department. He came to me and made some comment about, dead-centered, portrait. Well, we've come a long way since then. I think that, number one, there's nothing wrong with putting your image dead-centered if that fits your vision as an artist.
Do you think you have to, so we always hear you have to learn the rules before you break them. Do you think you have to learn the rules, or can you just start off breaking them?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if you break the rules, you're going to get some slack. People are not going to like it. And so you have to be able to accept that, that criticism. And that you're breaking new ground. So there are people that break new ground that probably don't know the rules very well, and they get away with it. I don't think I could have. So I think I had to go the path where I had to know the rules and then break them.
How do you feel about, I'm looking at your Twitter page. I know we were joking a little bit before the show about you being reluctant to join Instagram and these sort of social ways that photographers, Google Plus is another great example of a great photographer community online, that photographers are able to connect with others who like their work, let people know what they're up to. And where do you stand on the whole social spectrum of making sure, because you don't really need to get the word out because people are now coming to you. They know who you are, they want to work with you. So what are these tools, what do they mean to you?
You never can sit still. You never say you've arrived. And I think that, these are all great tools. I'm really lousy at it, okay? And it wasn't that long ago that my assistant said to me, or a friend who was assistant to me said, you need to get on Flickr. This was like maybe 6 years ago. And I was like, Flickr? What's that? And so I went to it, and I thought, oh, okay. So I started putting some images up. And all of a sudden, I got this influx of people wanting to know what I was doing. And then I said, well, I'm going to get a blog. Oh, no, my assistant said, get a blog. Because then you can answer the questions, help feed, some of this attention. And that was the explosion of where I'm come today in terms of my teaching and the recognition that I've got now is because of that original Flickr, the blog, and then eventually it carried on from there. But had I not done that, I would just still be doing my commercial advertising work. I wouldn't be sort of in the arena that I'm now. So now I'm recognizing how important those kind of things are, but I still hate it because I don't have enough time. I spend over 3 hours a day just answering my emails, much less, all the other stuff I do, Facebook and Twitter and whatever else.
It's very time consuming. I agree with you.
It is. No, I mean, I used to feel like I got things done at the end of the day.
No, that's how I feel. It's kind of annoying.
Well, it's what you make of it, and everybody uses the social media tools that we have in different ways, or they ignore them completely. I mean, I think there's nothing worse than someone telling you that you have to be part of some photographer network and you can't figure out how it's ever going to help you. I mean, that's no fun either.
No.
Well, that's actually a good point. I think that a takeaway is do the networks that you actually enjoy. And so a lot of people say, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be on Facebook. But I don't particularly like Facebook. I like Google+. I'm on Google+. I'm on Twitter sometimes. I'm never really on Facebook. So just because you're supposed to do something, if you don't like it, and this goes back to what you were talking about, following your intuition or following, if you don't like it, don't do it.
Right.
So, anyhow.
Well, with that, before we get into some of our awesome tips.
I can't wait for you to walk through.
That I know that Joel is going to take us through. Let's take this opportunity to thank the company that let us do TWiT Photo today, and that is Audible.com. If you're not familiar with Audible.com, I cannot tell you how much fun it is to be able to read a book with my eyes closed, or while I'm driving, or while I'm commuting, or while I'm cooking, or while I'm at the gym. I mean, there are so many ways that you can actually be able to ingest a novel or, some nonfiction book that everybody's raving about. Even some periodicals are at Audible. In fact, Audible has over 100,000 titles, which is extremely impressive because you can find what you are looking for here. And let's face it, we all would like to say that we read more than we do, but people are busy, and sometimes you're tired. And, you've had a long day of shooting your subjects out in the desert tundra, and you're just not going to sit down and read a novel. But you might be able to listen for an hour or so at the end of the day, or while you're in the middle of doing something else. That is why Audible absolutely shines. If you're unfamiliar with their catalog and the way they do things, if you just go to, you can go ahead and browse audiobooks, and you get a really good sense of new releases, the way that they categorize their audiobooks. Some audiobooks are actually read by the authors themselves, which can be really fun. Other books are read by professionals who have beautiful voices. They're really a joy to listen to. And what's cool is that if you go to audiblepodcast.com/twitphoto and you're not already an Audible subscriber, if you sign up, give it a go. It'll automatically sign you up for, I think it's the Gold plan, which is a book a month. You get your first book free. So you can try it out, see if Audible's the service for you, get a sense of everything you have to choose from, put some books into your queue. You can access them. It's not just via your computer. You can be on your iPad or your Android device. I mean, you can get creative with this stuff, when you're in your car, all that stuff. Mobile is really a key for Audible, of course, because you can start a book at one point, forget about it for a while, and then pick it up later, exactly right where you left off. So again, go to audible.com, take a look at all of the audiobooks that they have on offer. There are many, like I said, over 100,000 titles. You will never get bored. And if you want to try it out and get that free book, use the URL audiblepodcast.com/twitphoto. And again, we thank them for sponsoring this episode of TWiT Photo.
Do you listen to them on your way to TWiT?
Oh, it's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Because I get so bored. I mean, I love NPR, and I've got my stuff, I've got my music, I've got my internet radio. But sometimes I just want to feel like I am reading. Everyone wants to be reading all the time, and it's just not going to happen. We're busy people. So that's Audible. And now tips.
Yeah, excellent. So you're going to walk us through an image and see how you create from...
Did you want to do the camera thing first? Oh, no, this is Photoshop first.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Let's jump right in, since we were just talking about it with the guy on at Burning Man, right?
Yeah. Exactly, yes. I mean, I have absolutely, like, I wasn't kidding when I said I'm the noob on the show, because I love photography, I love your stuff, but I don't know how any of it works, so I'm paying attention.
Well, I get a couple questions all the time. And one is, about my knockouts. How do I get really good knockouts? And there's a lot of techniques that have come and gone, and we're getting better at that. The number one thing that I tell people is that you only have to knock out or cut out your subject to sell the fake. So when I first started, I was like getting in there, and every little pixel I was working on.
When you say knockout, you're talking about
cutting the person out of the background.
Okay, and then putting them somewhere else.
Yeah, and put them in, or knocking them out of. I use a white sweep. I don't use green screen because I don't see green. Green is my worst color.
Ah.
So if I use a green screen and I'm trying to knock out green, pixels between hair and stuff, I don't see it. So that's the number one reason why I don't use green. The other is that in still photography, a lot of times you get a green cast that comes from the green screen if you're not careful. And number one, I don't see that green cast coming into my subject, so I miss it. But white works really, really well. I will switch out black or gray on occasion, depending on what subject I have. But at any rate, but number one, you don't have to over knock out something. Just enough to sell the fake. Now, if you're doing a campaign, an ad campaign, and it's going to go really big, you might want to spend a little more time on it. But for about 90% of the knockouts I do a really good job. But if we can only go 100% really on our screen before it starts pixelating. So we don't really I view something at 50%, and I say, if it looks good at 50%, I've sold it.
Well, and how big are they going to be like 8 by 10 pages in a magazine? Because people aren't really going to see these shots on huge billboards. But even then, I blow them up and put them on my wall, a 40-inch print. You don't look at a 40-inch print 3 inches away.
Yeah.
You
look at it 5 feet back.
Yeah.
And so just to let people know it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off, because I keep getting these emails. Oh my gosh, it's taking me 3 hours to do a cutout. A knockout really should only take about 15 minutes at the most. I use CS5, and I use the refined edge. And so it's really simple. You just do your quick select, boom, 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 and you don't have to be perfect because you have a mask that comes with it. But once you have that knockout, I'm going to show you right now, and you end up with, I've got Russell Brown. You guys, most of you probably know Russell Brown from Adobe. I photographed him, a week ago in D.C. He dressed as Abraham Lincoln. And
he makes a good Abraham Lincoln.
He makes a great Abraham
Very
Lincoln.
convincing.
And,
Russell Brown, that's our former president.
Yeah, I know. And we had dinner with Russell, and I told my wife I've never actually had dinner with the president before, and so it was kind of fun. But so he was in the sweep. We were actually at the Westcott booth, and he just stepped in. We did a couple real quick pictures of him. I knocked him out here. This is the quick select, and you can see, if we zoom in on here, that it's not a real good select. See, there's a little bump right there. Mm-hmm. That is not good. There's a few things. I did get his beard a little bit there.
What about the hair? I mean, how do you do quick?
In quick select, they give you that little refined brush, and I just paint right along the hair here. And I don't, what I'm going to show you right now is I don't shrink the selection in refined mask, in the refined mask options. I do it later. That's what I'm going to show you right now. So basically, this has just come over from the refined mask, and I've got some issues. So I'm going to put a black background just to show you.
You got little notches in the ear on the left-hand side.
But see right here, we're going to blow this up. See, it's not really good selection here. We got some lines. See these lines right here? Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to shrink my mask on the fly and not shrink the hair. So what I do is I go over here to my lasso tool, and I'll pick him up just below the hair here, and I'll go down here, and let's come back right in here, okay? So now I've just selected his from the neck down, okay? And then making sure I'm on the mask, not on this his selection, but the mask selection here. I've got that selected. I go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and it's defaulted because I did this just to make sure everything was set up. But I set the radius to 3. So 3 radius Gaussian Blur. Now, we're going to blow this up. I'm going to show you how amazing this is. So let's go over here in an area where you can see that little line. See that little line right there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to blow it up even more. Okay? It's pretty bad. I used to hand cut that out. I'd take a brush and, do that all by hand.
Yeah, that would take forever.
Now, I go to levels. So my shortcut to levels is the Command L. And I'm just going to now take my black. There's 3 little diamonds here. You've got your highlights, your shadows, and your midtones. I take the black and slide it to the right.
Wow.
And it just disappears. And it does it on all the select here. Everything is selected.
Everything's...
Yeah. So I go about here. You can go. You make a little bit, but that's about where I would say that's good. I say okay. Then I say deselect here, and I'm just going to do now the hat. So I'm selected here, and you got a chunk of his ear missing there, but that's okay because I can fix that. And I do the same thing. So now I go to filter. It's already I've already selected it, so I just go here, Apple or Command F. We'll pick it up again. Apple L, slide it over. Whoops, pick it up here. Come on. And it shrinks the hat. Now there's still a couple little chunks here. I'll say okay. There's a couple little chunks here. So I just go to my brush, make sure it's on 100%, and I'm on. Let's go down here. My brush. This is my new tablet here, my Wacom tablet. Enter here, and I can. Oops, wrong way. Make sure I'm on the black. And I can just clean up this stuff. Well, that went too far on that. Let's just go a little bit bigger here and make the brush a little smaller. But I can just clean up all the, in anything that's got some issues here. I just clean things up. Like his ear, see how his ears, I'm missing a whole chunk there? So I go to white, and I just bring his ear. Well, I got too much there. Let's go make sure it's cleaned up here. And my brush is a little too soft here, so let's just harden the brush. Usually it's about right there. But I can clean up his ear here, clean it up here.
So this is the same as a lot of the stuff that Kelby teaches, like doing the rough general overall first and then clean it up versus trying to meticulously do it initially.
Yes. But see, this whole thing would take me maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. Then I go over here and I drop him into the background. So here's Russell in this background that I shot. So let's take all these off here, and I'm going to show you. This is what I shot right here. That's HDR, processed in Photomatics. And then what I did was, I think I ran it through just a little bit of desaturation. And now there it is. That's my shot I did of the Lincoln Memorial. So now I want to drop Russell in there. So if we drop Russell in there, it doesn't look very good. Okay? But I start adding, number one, you can see I've got hue, saturation, black and white, and photo filter. Those are the 3 filters that I'm going to use on the background. And then I've got the same thing on Russell. So now I can independently adjust my color. Again, I'm colorblind, but I go by with my intuition. I can adjust the value of warmness on him independent of the background. And so I do that with these layers on him, these layers on the background, and I can fine-tune my image. But what I want to show you is I always put a glow behind my subjects, and I use the opacity to feather it.
How do you create that glow?
Okay, I'm going to show you. So let's say there's my streak, okay? And there's an overall kind of fogging I do. So there's kind of the final image, okay? And I do a little Nik software.
And how long does that take you to do in total?
This is a simple one. It usually take me 3 hours, and I would say that if I really do an image right now, it's about an hour.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
This is probably a faster one here because it's not as many elements. But I want to show you how I make this streaking because I get this call all the time. Okay, so let's take off. Those are the 3 sort of the glow ones. Okay, so what I do is we're going to make right here. We're going to make a blank layer. Okay, so it's just going to be layer 8. I don't really name my layers. I did on this one just for you guys, but I go over here to my brush. I'm on white. I go to about 20 20-20, or somewhere around 20% flow, 20% opacity. Okay, I make my brush big. Okay, we're going to do the big one here first. Let's make sure it's soft. Okay, so it's on the harden there. Okay, and then I'm just going to slowly sort of paint him in here. On this laptop, it's going to take a little bit to catch up. But I just start painting in here and building up. Now, hold on a second. It's going to take a second to build up here. There you go. See it? Still working. It doesn't like this mode because it takes a lot of RAM.
Jeez.
And I've got the maxed out 8 gigs of RAM in this thing. But see, it's building up here. It's still working.
Oh, yeah, but I'm starting to see it.
Yeah, it's coming in here. Okay, when it comes over. Okay, so let's turn it off. There it is. There's my glow. And I usually add a little bit of noise to it, just to give a little bite. And that's usually between 12 and 20%, so, or 20 amount. So let's just say 20 here. Say okay. That gives a little bit of a grit to it. Okay, so let's do the background. This is the one that's really, people ask me how to do it. Now I'm working on a Wacom tablet. Okay, you can't really do it without it.
Which, by the way, I don't care what level you are, Wacom tablet, if you're going to do any kind of retouching.
Yes.
A mouse is like...
Yeah. When I bought my first tablet, I was so excited, right? And I brought it home, and I got it out, and I was like, ooh. And I was like, I feel like I'm on a ship. I'm getting seasick. And I put it away for 2 years.
Really?
I literally did not touch it for 2 years. And then I read a tutorial where it said, you need a tablet. And I was like, ah. Well, I got it out. So I tell people, how long does it take you to ride a bike? Or learn? So you're a little kid, and it takes you to ride a bike, what, a couple days?
Yeah.
And you got it.
Fall down a few times,
Yeah.
but...
That's what it takes on a tablet.
Well,
just
they've
a couple day investment, and you are flying. And now, there's no way I could live without this. I mean, literally, you know, I fly. The amount of time I save with a tablet is just amazing. So I encourage people, and it's not a huge investment either.
Well, and it saves your wrist, too.
Well, it does. So here's something that's going to take, that you can only do on a tablet. And what I have to do is, I got a blank layer, okay? And I'm going to go up here to my window, brush presets. This is important to know, okay? I'm going to pick, and I already have it here. Let me scroll down here a little bit. Most of the time it defaults to this fat brush here that's got no tapering to it. And so I use that for usually when I do my little cleanups around my selection. But when it comes to my streaking, you have to have the tapered brush selected, okay? So let's do this. And then I'm going to start, let's make sure we're here, okay? I'm at 20-20-ish right there. Let's maybe bump it up a little bit, because you can always take the opacity down on it. So I'm going to lower down my brush size here. And I get my little finger ready on my shift button here, and I click on my starting point, and then I go like that. And then I click, and I just hit the shift key down and hold it, and I do my little streaking here. And sometimes it gets like where it says, oh, help, you know, and it like it says it doesn't want to do it very well, but just keep doing it. And I just got this tablet, so my pressure is not quite set up 100% right here. It'd take me a little bit to do that, but I'm just going to keep doing this. And so this is how I build my streaks. And all my stadium lighting, this is how I do it right here.
Now, does it always come from one sun point? I noticed that all your rays, even if they go out really far, are still coming from that one place to keep some sort of sense of reality.
Okay, so I'm going to do this until I feel like I've sort of got it covered. And a lot of times what you can do is you can duplicate it and then, you know, spin it, just rotate a little bit so you get a whole bunch of extra. But anyways, so let's say that's it, okay? Now I'm going to create a mask. And I want to create a black mask. So I'm going to hold down, the Option key, and while I click on the mask button, and now I just lost all that, but I have a black mask. But I'm going to take a gradient, so I go over to my gradient, I take the circle here, and let's see if I got it right here. There it goes.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool.
That's so
and I can,
cool.
you know, depending on how far I move it out, I can make it. And then I can take my opacity down, sometimes add a little bit of blur to it. But anyways, that's how I do my streaks. And I do them on all the stadium lighting, and it takes a little bit of time. I just did a stadium with Hope Solo, the soccer goalie for the U.S. Olympics. I had maybe 40 lights in the background that I had to do this to. But it
really gives that ambiance.
Yes.
Of
But I do it on
being
one
in
or
the-
two, then I duplicate it and I spin them around, and so I don't actually have to physically do all 40 lights. I just take it and I just kind of duplicate them all over.
Again, no real rules. We definitely want to get to some of your other tips, so let's move into choosing the right strobes for freezing action.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I get this question a lot, and I was doing an ad campaign for Febreze, and the art director, said, "Okay, we want you to do these, these pictures for us, and they're going to be athlete, or they're not professional athletes, but looking like professional athletes." So we cast it for it and do this whole big thing. They show up, and I get everything ready, right? My assistant, we're all there, and he says, "Oh no, they're going to be like running through the, running, jumping, doing all this stuff." Like, what? Action? I'm a portrait shooter, right? Big panic, and I ended up, we solved it, but my strobes weren't really designed for high-speed duration, and I'll tell you why that is when we have really two options in strobe to buy when you buy a strobe. You have a thyristor-driven technology that's in your little speed lights, okay? And then you have the capacitor-driven strobes that are in the big studio-type strobes. The problem with capacitor strobes is that, and I don't know all the technical things, but if the light goes off and it discharges and it has like a bell curve and then it gets to its hottest, brightest point and then it drops back down off to zero. Okay? So it's this big time frame. In terms of the speed of light, there's a big gap of time between when it starts and when it finishes. Okay? So generally speaking, that if the lower your output on your strobe is, the shorter that bell curve is and the faster your flash duration is. But still not very fast. Now, manufacturers like Profoto, and I don't know how they get around it, but they can build capacitor strobes that can get a really fast duration, but you're going to pay a huge amount for that strobe, and so it's very expensive. Thyristor technology is a little bit simpler, and that's why we have these little strobes. And so if you go out and have someone jump and you do a little strobe on them, boop, or in a studio, they're pretty much frozen, okay? Especially if you just put out a little bit of power. And so, because what happens is the bell curve comes up, and then the thyristor says, bunk, cuts it. And it shaves it right off at the top of the, the bell curve, or somewhere around there. So it's a faster or shorter flash duration. So when I'm in a studio, I have my camera sync, and my camera sync is limited to 200th of a second, okay? That's the fastest that the shutter opens and closes at full curtain, okay? And so it's not very fast. 200th of a second is not very fast. To freeze someone in the air, you need about 1/4000th to 1/6000th to really do a good job. Okay? Most capacitor strobes will go around 1/300th to 1/2000th. Okay, so it's not going to be fast enough to freeze someone in a studio environment, a dark environment. So you need to get a strobe that allows you, or speed lights. The speed lights will go up to 1/10,000th of a second, or somewhere around there. There are manufacturers out now that are building and are trying to design strobes that will solve this problem of freezing action, and it's getting a little bit more. It's getting more available on the market. I use the Einsteins by Paul C. Buff, and they are amazing, and they're very inexpensive, and so they're not as powerful, say, as the Profoto. So if you're out, if you're doing something where you got a big set and you need, cover 30 feet with modifiers, you need a lot of strobe power. But anyways, so people don't understand that. You think, well, I just need a high shutter speed, right? But you can't. You're limited to your sync speed by your camera, which is 1/200th, 1/250th of a second. So for me to freeze these guys jumping through the air, I have to have a high-speed flash duration pack that allows me to do that. And the Einsteins, by the way, are thyristor-driven technology. So that's
what happened with the Febreze campaign? Were they blurry?
Yes, I had a couple blurry, but what we did was I actually photographed the face still, or the hand still, and then we put them all together.
Oh, geez.
So it took me a lot of time.
Yeah.
To get around that.
Try to avoid that one.
But there's no more into that whole thing. But basically, if you say, I want to freeze an athlete going through the air, you've got to have a power pack that allows you to do a high speed, at least around 1/4000 to 1/6000, something like that.
Now, we want to make sure we have time to talk about favorite photos. This is the part where any guest of TWiT Photo gets to talk about photos that they love the most. What comes to mind for you?
Well, I picked a couple images that I wanted to show and talk about. And the reason why is, here's one of Lauren. And this is with 2 7-foot octaboxes on still my 3-light approach. Okay, so you saw the edgy sport stuff. This is the same exact approach, only using huge modifiers. So 7-foot modifiers in the back and a 5-foot modifier overhead. Now, I've pretty much balanced the light so that she's not, in a high contrast situation.
Right. I mean, her back is almost fading right
Yes.
into the background.
Okay, now, the reason why I want to show this image is because if I was in college, say 10 years ago, and I presented this to my professor, he would have said, overexposed, right? But the reason why I think we can get away with it, and digital allows me to get away with it, well, in fact, in the old days with film, I would have had a hard time pulling this off. But it was not accepted as much as it is today, where you can blow something out. So really, all I want is enough detail so that skin and the background has just a very slight little different separation. So that's my goal. So I ended up creating this image to be blown out on purpose.
How do you keep her eyes from being blown out? Because they're obviously really dark. There's a lot of makeup there, but...
that pretty much is the way the lighting allows that. It's not really a whole lot of Photoshop there.
Wow.
It's just falling into place. It's such a soft light. And I'm getting a little bit of fogging going on in my lenses, too, because there's so much light pouring into my lens. So it flattens it out a little bit. But a lot of times I'll bring the eyes out a little bit, but I don't think I really spend a whole lot of time there. It's just that her skin is light. But and also I'm doing a Photoshop technique where I'm converting I do this in all my images. I have the color version. I take a black and white version. I take and I blend the two together, and it creates a little bit of a desaturated look. And it kind of gives it a little punch to it. So that's what's happening here, too. But really, the reason why I want to show this is that I can get away with this today as an artist and as the tools that we have, and I can pull it off. And again, not everyone may love this, but what I love to be able to go down a path that I couldn't have gone down 15 years ago. And so people ask me, how do I know, if I'm on the right track? If I'm building images that are on the right track? I say, could you have done it 15 years ago? Is the image you're taking right now, could you have shot this 15 years ago? And they go, yes, then you're not on the right track.
I love it. Do we have another favorite photo?
Yeah, okay. So here's Karan, the gold medalist in the 400 hurdles. And so I had this idea, and I wanted to photograph him and put him in this Sepovia Dam area. But the reason why I want to show this is because perspective-wise, this image is not correct. Okay? So now, if I had Karan standing or crouched in this position in this dam, now I'm shooting him with a 24 wide angle, and the background is shot with a 16 millimeter. This is in a full frame. Okay? So it's a stretched background, and he's stretched too. His feet are smaller than his hands, which I love. Okay? But when I put him in here, he's not 100% perspectively correct. Okay? And the reason why I like to show this is that when you look at it first, you go, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. You're not sitting there and your little brain's not going, oh, wait a minute, the background's with the 16 millimeter, the foreground's with the 24.
You don't notice
he's bigger
it at
than
all.
he should be. Yeah. You don't notice that. And so people always ask me, do you have to measure the distance of your camera off the, the ground, and do you have to go and take the same millimeter background with the same millimeter as the foreground? I say, no. We are illusionists. We are, because photography is not reality. It's an illusion of reality. It's a representation of reality. It's not reality. What happens is we think it's reality, and therefore we try to achieve reality. But the fact is you can never achieve reality, so why not just let it go? Why not just create imagery that says it works or it doesn't work?
I love this. And you couldn't do this 15 years ago.
Couldn't have done it 15
Definitely
years
couldn't have done it. And actually, going on that, with that image, one thing I noticed with a lot of your women's shots, so you do this HDR, but a lot of times HDR does not look good on the skin most of the time. But you somehow keep this really dynamic, high dynamic range, but the skin looks sexy. How do you, in short version, how do you do that?
The subjects themselves also in HDR?
Yeah, how do you keep the skin looking hot and
it's
sexy?
Still, every image that I'm doing, whether it's the background or the subject, okay? I do shoot some HDR subjects, that's with continuous light, but most of these are not HDR. The subjects aren't HDR. HDR, see what's happened is HDR's got a really bad name, and it's got a bad rap because people go into Photomatics and they go, whoa, and they do this funky, posterization stuff, and they go, wow. And you know what? They may like it, and that's okay if they like it. But the fact is, I shoot HDR because it gives me detail in the shadows and detail in the highlights. I'm taking a range of images that allow me to blend and get all those range. Plus, I end up with a true 16-bit file where our cameras are shooting 14-bit today. Okay, so it gives me a little bit more palette of colors.
Couldn't have done that 15 years ago.
No. But what I'm saying is then I go and I take and I treat both those images in Photoshop the same exact way, which is taking a color version, a black and white version, I blend them together, and that's not a secret. I have tutorials and all that, but it's like it takes too long to explain that. But it's really simple. It's taking that. So now every image is it takes a creative steps along the way, a decision to be made, and so I treat skin a little bit different than I say I might treat a car or something, but
because you're not afraid of showing pores.
Like I see
a lot of
on the yeah.
But it's still attractive.
I know, it's unusual.
It's flattering. I guess you have to start with somebody who has decent skin.
Well,
or make it decent first.
You make it decent. Nobody has perfect skin. That's the whole weird thing about it. And once in a while you get a model, you go, wow, it's really good skin. But but most of it you do.
So you make it perfect and then you grunge it up.
Yeah, but you try not to make it too perfect because it looks like plastic.
Yeah,
so
plastic is no good. And then lens, you had one other tip, the lens sweet spot.
All right. People come to me and they say, look, what lenses are you using? Because my images are crap. And they say, I happen to use a Canon or whatever, and I go, well, it's not your lens. The fact is, and this is the way optics work, is that when you put a camera on a stable platform, you're going to get better results than hand holding it, across the board. So even if you're at 1/500th of a second, or 1/1000th of a second, if you put it on a tripod, you're going to have a better result. Just the way it is. Now, if you get 1/8000th of a second, you probably wouldn't see the difference. But most of us aren't shooting at 1/8000th of a second. Most of us are pushing that level of where we're going to hand hold it, right? 1/60th, 1/25th, somewhere around there. And so when I shoot, almost 99% of the time, you'll see me, all my behind-the-scenes stuff, I'm shooting with a tripod. Because it's more of a stable platform. So that's just the way it is. Okay, now, we can't always shoot on a tripod, but I try to. And so my assistants will tell me, why are you shooting on a tripod? I go, because I get a sharper result. And it's true.
I love the curl of the lip, by the way.
Well, but it's true. It's funny how it works. I've done side-by-sides, and you can do this. Okay. Now, another thing is that all optics, I don't have a PhD in optics or whatever they call that, but the fact is that when you shoot wide open, you get aberration. Because lenses there's convex, concave elements. And as they curve they're going to curve on the outside. And if you look on a cross-section, just Google it, the lens cross-section, you'll see that you have all these convex, concave elements. Okay? And so when light comes down through there, and if you have it wide open, you're getting the widest part of that lens, which is the weakest part of what it's going to produce for you. So sometimes you have to shoot wide open. But if you can, shoot at around 2 to 3 stops from wide open, and you get your sharpest point of the lens. So if you look at my metadata, almost every single one of my pictures is f8. Somewhere f7.1 to f9. Now, if I'm outdoors and I have to have a lot of depth of field, I might go to say 16, but unless I'm strobing outdoors and I need to go to f16, f22, I always keep it around f8. And that's the sweet spot of the lens. And if you stop all the way down to f22, you get diffraction. It's just the way optics are, and you get a lesser quality lens. So people always ask me, what f-stop do you shoot at? f7.1 to f8, somewhere around there.
So that goes against what a lot of people think. People would think f22, you're going to have the sharpest. But no, in fact, f11, f8, depending on the speed of your lens.
Yes. If you have 1.4 lens, it's 2 to 3 stops from wide open.
Yeah.
So wherever that falls. But if you go on DP Review Go to lens testing, review, whatever. Just pick any lens. They have like maybe 40 lenses. Just pick like a 50-1.4 and go in there and take a little slider from 1.4 to 22, and it shows you the color. It starts changing, and like blue is really good quality and yellow is okay. And you watch it go, whoo, to get around f7.1, it gets real bluish, and then it goes back to yellow. It shows you where the sweet spot is.
Speaking of lenses, what is your favorite lens?
I shoot most of my athletes in the studio at around 24 millimeter to 35 millimeter. I'm a wide-angle guy. And in fact, it's pretty rare you'll ever see me put a lens on that is shooting longer than a 50 millimeter. And my backgrounds are almost all 16 millimeter. I have a 17 tilt shift now that I use. I shift it left. I shoot a 3-bracket HDR, shift it right, shoot a 3-bracket.
What are you bracketing it? How many stops in between?
Two stops.
Okay.
So it's a 2-stop from normal over, 2-stop under. So it's a 3-stop click.
Got it. And then you have a nifty gadget for your tripod, I see.
Well, I shot medium format for years. And the RZ had a rotating back. So you set your portrait up and you go, okay, oh, there's a tree there, there's a lamppost there. Okay, I'm going to put them right here. Okay? So on RZ, you just go flip, flip, flip. If your client said horizontal, vertical, you just flip the back. And the lens always stayed in the center. Well, when eventually digital came along and I got these 35 millimeter type cameras, when you went to go vertical, so let's see if I can get it over here. If you went to go vertical, you would have to take your camera, let's raise this up a little bit, I don't know if you guys can see here. You'd have to go like this, right? Mm-hmm. And then you'd have to move your tripod back over to center and then raise it back up.
This is why I don't use a tripod.
Yeah. Okay, it's like, okay, how long does that take? That's like a 10-second, and then the model standing there, or whoever is like, and then it's like you're bouncing things around and it's like crazy. So I happened to look online. I found, or someone tipped me off to Really Right Stuff. Okay? And they have all this stuff that's really cool, but...
The website is Really Right Stuff?
Yeah, it's called Really Right Stuff.
Okay.
But the reason why I started with them was because they have an L bracket here that's set up for each camera, and I have the battery grip on here because it gives a little more meat to this camera. This is a 5D Mark II.
So L bracket, it allows you to go...
Yeah. So now what I do is I'm horizontal. I got everyone lined up perfectly in my frame. I'm sitting there, okay, the client says, give me a vertical. Oh, no problem. I just do like this.
Ah.
And now I don't have to move anything, move them, their head. The lens is exactly dead center in the exact spot it was before.
And you keep that tripod precision that you like.
Yeah. And they make really good ball heads too, which is a plus. But
how much does something like that, this L?
This L bracket is going to be about $150 to $180.
Okay.
So a little pricey, but it's not that bad.
If it's a problem that you're running into often, it's a good investment.
Oh, it's worth every penny. And then these are beautiful ball heads, and they're about about $350. So it's a little pricey, but this will last you a lifetime too. So it's really a good investment. But you can take these plates and put them on your existing ball head or whatever head you have. But I just think it's a little bulky, it has a little bit of bulk to it, but I don't even think about it. Once you put it on there, it's like, but to be able to flip that camera on access is just it's a dream. That's my little, the thing I can't live without.
Tip.
Can't you live without, yeah.
I love this. Joel Grimes, thank you so much for being here today, not only for being part of TWiT Photo, but for coming up and being here with us in person and showing us some of your tips,
and then
your tutorials.
He has on his website, I fell in love with your website, by the way. Your blog is so rich with content, and he has tutorials, and you also have some workshops coming up, so.
I do. We typically hold them in, my workshops are held in Pasadena, Old Town. And there's some fun little alleys and old buildings and stuff to shoot there, and our studio's right in Old Town, so we can go anywhere, restaurants and movie theaters, and it's kind of a fun place. But usually I have 12 attendees, and we have one. This weekend we have one, but it's filled up. And I have a couple more slots for the May 19th and 20th, and it's just total fun. I bring models in, and they're good models, and so people tell me, hey, I would have paid just to have these models in front of me. So it's fun stuff.
That's great.
So people come to Pasadena, go to your workshop, and then head up to San Francisco for the Google Plus conference.
There you go.
California trip.
There you go.
Make it happen.
All right. Well, thank you again. Go to joelgrimes.com. That's JoelGrimes to see so many more of Joel's photos. We could only show you a very small subset of all the stuff that you have on offer there. And you are on the Twitter, because I found you.
Yes.
And Google Plus as well. Maybe Instagram one day.
According to my son, I've got to sign up quick.
Yeah. Well, it's no longer cool because now they're bought by Facebook, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, there'll be something else tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And then also, audience, don't forget to check out Trey's show. He had last night, I think he was talking about fireworks. So,
was he?
Yeah.
I was not able to watch, but I bet that would have been a very...
always
entertaining conversation.
Yeah, they're running around Google headquarters. So if you want to check out Google headquarters, watch the show. Another way to see it.
Absolutely. And next week, Catherine, you and Leo are going to be...
We are going to Norway. And I'm so thrilled to be doing a show there. There's going to be... It amazes me, this little town of Norway, how they get these huge, huge, huge names out there. But there's a ton of really big photographers out there. We have great shows. We're going to do 2 parts of this episode coming up. So the first one's going to air May 1st. And then next week... TWiT viewers are going to be lucky enough to have you again.
Yeah, TWiT viewers, lucky or unlucky.
Lucky.
It depends on how...
According to the chat, very lucky.
Yes. Catherine and Leo will be in Norway, so they're going to bring back a bunch of great content for the following week and beyond. But as far as next Tuesday goes, I am going to hold down the fort here and have a guest. We're going to figure out exactly what kind of show we're going to have without Catherine or Leo. Wow, I could do anything. Let's just hope I don't screw it up. But join us next week. It'll be fun. Whatever we end up doing, maybe we'll go a little crazy. Why not? The cats are away and.
Yeah, let's see. I'm interested to see what you bring, Sarah.
I'll bring in my old Nikon film camera that I used to use in college, and we'll talk about that maybe. I don't know. No, it'll be fun. No, but so thank you for letting me, for putting your trust in me while you guys are out of town. Can't wait to see what you come back with.
Me too. All
right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, viewers, and we will see you May 1st.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you next week on TWiT Photo.